and I'm so glad you could all join us for today's presentation. First, I'd like to thank today's webinar sponsor, Stonyfield Organic. Stonyfield is the world's leading organic yogurt company, and they are also Kiwi's partner, along with the School Nutrition Association and Whole Foods, of Kiwi's Take Your Parents to Lunch Day initiative. As many of you may know, October 17th is National Take Your Parents to Lunch Day. It's a day for parents across the country to visit their children's school and have lunch with them in the cafeteria. The goal of this program is to learn more about what goes on into putting together a healthy lunch, and for parents and school officials to open the lines of communication so we can all work together to provide kids with the healthiest meals possible. You can find out more about the program at myhealthyschool.com. So to help kick off School Lunch Week, which begins on Monday, we are so excited to present this webinar on healthy lunches. Our presenter today is Catherine McCord. Catherine is mom to Kenya, who is 5, and Chloe, who is 3, and she's also the creator of Wealicious.com. After struggling to feed her own kids, Catherine recognized the need for realistic, accessible, and nutritious recipes using minimal ingredients but packed full of flavor. Wealicious, which has over 700 recipes and uses ingredients that are readily available in your kitchen, available in your kitchen. The recipes are fast and easy to follow. Catherine also just released her book, Wealicious, One Family, One Meal. Everyone listening in today's webinar will be entered to win Catherine's book, and 15 lucky winners will be contacted by Kiwi via email. The winners will also get Stonyfield coupons. So before I turn it over to Catherine, I want everyone to know that she'll be taking questions at the end of her presentation. Feel free to type in your questions at any time during the program, and I'll present them to Catherine at the end. So Catherine, thank you so much for being here today, and please take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited about being here talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is school lunch. So to give you a brief overview, in case you don't know Wealicious or myself, I started Wealicious 5.5 years ago. I had gone to culinary school over 10 years ago and was always very passionate about food, even from a young age where my grandparents had an enormous influence on me, taking me to U-Pick farms, cooking together, and really giving me a love of food from a very early age. So yeah, after attending culinary school, I worked in restaurants and catering companies and didn't really know what I was going to do with food in the field. And then I had my son. And when my son was about 5 months old, I started going on the internet and looking for interesting recipes because we bought a lot of our food at the farmer's market. So I wanted him to eat fresh foods and introduce him to really interesting baby food purees. So I started looking on the internet and I just found very little information. And I realized what a mountain it is for new parents when they're trying to feed their babies and they don't know, what kinds of foods to be providing. So I started Wealicious and started blogging every day a different baby food puree. But Wealicious grew very quickly because that baby food puree, part of a child is very small, about 5-6 months. And we grew into toddler food and then eventually family food. And even for myself, I just wanted to find ways to feed my family where I didn't feel like a short order cook all the time, making something different for everyone. And when my son was 3 years old, and just even before 3 years old, he started preschool, and we got to go every day, and I would make him lunch, and I would sit there, and I would look at all of the choices that parents were providing their kids, and I saw like a lot of white bread, peeled apples. So I started taking a picture of my son's school lunch every day and posting it on Facebook, and now we have hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and they're based just on the fact that I give my son a different thing every day, a different meal, and my daughter now too. And but there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of fun involved. So we relaunched Wealicious earlier this summer, and you can see on the screen, this is what Wealicious looks like now. So it really helps you whether you have a baby, a toddler, if you're trying to just do one meal for the entire family. So it helps in all kinds of ways because you can see there's a different recipe on Weelicious every day. On Tuesdays, there's a cooking video to show parents that they can cook with their food, with their kids. Getting kids involved from the beginning is a really great way to make kids really great eaters. So in the Weelicious cookbook, which just came out this month, one of the most important things for me was figuring out how to offer inexpensive and nutritious foods, how to keep a few staples in your kitchen that, you know, would stay fresh for days, weeks, so you always didn't feel like you're running out to the market. Because I think a lot of parents, when they think of especially lunch, like, what do I keep in the kitchen? I don't want to have to just keep going out all the time, but I also don't want to just be giving the same PB&J and apple every day. So this is my list of, you know, a few foods that I like to keep in the kitchen at all times, because bananas, beans, bread, brown rice, cheese, couscous, eggs, frozen fruits and vegetables, nut and seed butters, oats and oatmeal, pasta, potatoes, tofu, and whole chicken. A lot of these I like to make whole grains as much as possible. So the breads are, you know, whole wheat bread. The brown rice, it's brown rice. You're trying to, within building a school lunch or really any meal, pack as much nutrition as possible in every last bite. Because I think with kids, they're busy, they're talking to their friends when they're at lunch, they're highly distracted. So when you're offering foods in a school lunch, you want to make sure that they are as nutrient dense as possible. And then I can see, I wrote frozen fruits and vegetables. I think a lot of people don't realize that when frozen fruits and vegetables are picked, they're picked at the peak of perfection, where a lot of other fruits and vegetables are picked and then they're put on a truck and then they're taken to a plant where they're packaged and then they're, you know, flown. So by the time they actually get back to your house, they're already losing their nutrients. So frozen fruits and vegetables are totally your best friend. Same thing with nut butters. They're packed with protein, and if your child or their school is nut-free, seed butters, sunflower butter is a fantastic choice. All right, I'm going to skip on. So when I pack a school lunch, the most important thing is about balance. You want to always pack a fruit, a vegetable, a protein, and a carbohydrate. That way, at least you know you've done your job. I think that, you know, we don't give kids enough credit. We always worry like, oh my gosh, my child didn't get it, you know, enough fruits today or enough vegetables. Like, I think as long as you provide balance within every meal, your child will get what they need. I think there's plenty of days that my son's lunch comes home and he's eaten everything except his cookie, and I'm like, that's the cookie. How could you not eat the cookie? But you know, and then there's other days that the cookie and the fruit's gone, or you know, or there's a bite left here, or you know, or all the food is gone. So I just think that if a parent does their job providing, then it's the kid's job to hopefully, you know, eat the food that we make. Seasonal is really important. We don't want kids eating strawberries in January. We want to provide fruits and vegetables that are in season. So right now, you know, we're finishing peaches. They're almost done, and we're going into like apples and pears and mangoes. You want to just make sure that whatever you're eating is as fresh as possible, because it's going to taste a lot better too, and often be a lot more inexpensive as well. So this is just a slide of a school lunch that I made. I mean, I made homemade Oreos, and that recipe was on Weelicious yesterday. Carrots and dip. Dip is a great way to, you know, increase the fun factor. When kids are able to dip, you know, this is just a simple yogurt dip with lemon and some dried herbs. It's a salt-free seasoning. But you're getting protein from the yogurt plus the vegetable of the carrot. And colors. You see this lunch, there's like a lot of color. So when you're packing a lunch, you know, when it's all white or all brown, it doesn't have as much eye appeal. Kids eat with their eyes as much as they do with anything else. So when things are cut into fun shapes, bright in color, it makes the meal a lot more interesting. This too. This is dragon fruit at the top, and I started sending my son with dragon fruit, I guess about a year and a half ago, and it's a big conversation piece. I probably had a dozen parents over the past year come up to me and say, you know, my daughter or my son saw this purple fruit in Kenya's lunch. What is it? Where'd you get it? I think that, you know, we don't give our kids enough credit, you know, that we think, oh, they're only going to like apple or they're only going to like strawberries. Changing it up, switching it up, buying things that, you know, are a little outside the box. One kiwi, one dragon fruit. You don't have to commit to buying an enormous package of something. And just trying it, because sometimes kids will surprise you and eat things at lunch that they wouldn't necessarily eat when they're home with, you know, their parents saying, here, eat this now. So this is just some toasted garbanzo beans with some cinnamon and honey. They're really crunchy. They're baked. There's a recipe for them on Weelicious. And pancake sandwich. This is a great opportunity always to save your pancakes, save the waffles, like the extras that you have. Don't throw them out. Pop them in the freezer so that for breakfast or lunch another day, that you can just pop them in the toaster and spread some preserves or cream cheese or a nut butter, and you know, you didn't buy bread at the grocery, now you have a pancake sandwich or a waffle sandwich. Don't always think that you have to serve a sandwich. Pasta, grains, they're great ways to sort of switch things up. This was just some pasta with some 3 types of grated cheeses that I really tossed together, because I think that as a parent, you know, you get stuck in the rut, in the lunch rut of offering the same thing day in and day out, and it's really important to try to, you know, switch it up now and then, because it makes it a little bit more exciting. And you can see, like, even I slice things all the time in different shapes, and I think that adds, you know, to the fun also. And this is just some roast barbecue chicken with barbecue sauce, and I used a melon baller for the melons. So instead of cutting it into wedges, I just did some, you know, really pretty little balls. And then these are going to be some recipes from the Weelicious cookbook. I started the cookbook almost 3.5 years ago, and it's over 150 fast, fresh, and easy recipes. And they're supposed to be recipes that you want to feed everybody in your family. Like, these are cheesy chicken taquitos, and I guarantee they fly right out, because your 2.5, 3-year-old can eat these. The 80-year-old grandparents can enjoy these, and I serve them either with salsa or guacamole, because it's just really fun to dip them. And kids love things that they can hold in their hands. It just makes it a lot more interesting. This was a recipe, better than ice cream, that actually my husband created, because he'll call me Willy Wonka, because I'll give the kids cookies or ice cream, and he's like, why are you giving them that? So he called this better than ice cream, and he really let them make it. And it's just Greek yogurt and honey, cinnamon, and walnuts. And even for breakfast, I always say, like, if you want to help make your kids great eaters, one of the best ways is to get them involved in the kitchen. So if you make oatmeal for breakfast, offer them different toppings. You make the oatmeal, and then let them pour in a little milk or some honey, cinnamon, maple syrup, dried fruits, nuts, and this way they make it their own, and they're part of the process, opposed to you just saying, you know, here, eat this, we got to go, hurry up. Because the more that you can involve them, the better eaters they become in the long run. And one of my favorite things that I talked about earlier is the idea of breakfast to lunch, and trying to just make sure that you can turn different meals into new meals. Reinventing all the time is one of the best ideas, whether you do it breakfast to lunch, or you do it from dinner to lunch the next day. Those are great tips, time-saving tips. With school lunches these days, we're seeing, all kinds of different allergies: dairy allergies, wheat allergies with gluten, and I'm seeing more than anything is the nut allergy. So I try to make a lot of recipes on Weelicious that are nut-free. So these were some sunflower butter and bran muffins. There's no reason. A little chocolate chip during the day, it makes kids really happy. You'd rather give them chocolate at, in the morning or midday than probably 7 at night when that caffeine is going to really kick in. So these are a great alternative. And all of the recipes on Weelicious, whenever they call for peanut butter or almond butter, you can always substitute sunflower butter. And then back to the dinner to lunch. So a lot of the recipes that I make at home for dinner, I turn into lunch the next day. When I was growing up, I hated the idea of the word leftovers. Leftovers somehow is like taboo. It just meant like bleh, it wasn't going to be good or taste good. There's so many things that you can do with dinner to lunch. This right here is a barbecue salmon, and sometimes I'll just crumble it over rice, and my son absolutely loves it. It's the same with, the idea if you take a burger, like a chicken burger, a veggie burger, and then the next day you put it in a pita pocket with some hummus and vegetables. If you make chicken fajitas one night, again, you can put it over a grain or you can mix it with some roast vegetables. You're always trying to, as much as possible, with a dinner or cooking on the weekends, turn the things that you make into making those meals stretch out as much as possible. And this is a tandoori chicken, and I made the tandoori chicken with some basmati rice for dinner, and then the next day I just sliced the extra breast that I had up and put it with some tomatoes and this really delicious spread, and I put it on some panini bread, and that was lunch. And these are one of my son's favorite recipes, unfried chicken tenders. And you can, slice these up, put them with some mozzarella and some pesto on a panini. Panini presses are great. Waffle makers and panini presses to make a warm, crusty, delicious sandwich where the cheese pulls. Kids love that, and they'll never know that those unfried chicken tenders that you had for dinner the night before became part of their lunch the next day. And that's really my presentation. I'd love any questions that anyone wants to ask.
Catherine, that was really great. Thanks so much. I have 2 small children, and they're both actually picky eaters. So I think some of the things that you were just talking about today, I'm definitely going to incorporate into my meal plan. And we're getting a lot of really good questions from the audience. One of in fact, picky eating, it tends to be a popular topic among moms. And one of the moms had asked, how do you give your child a variety of options? You had mentioned the fruits and the vegetables and the protein and the carbs. How do you continue to do that when the lunchbox comes back every day and everything is there except for the carb? If your child just loves pasta and is not eating the fruits and vegetables, do you continue to send it every day? Do you try to shake it up and incorporate different types of fruits and vegetables? How do you deal with a child who is a challenging eater?
And I like that you switched it at the very end. You went from picky to eventually challenging. And I hear this all the time, and I'm trying to really get parents to switch their heads up about this. Instead of the word picky, let's challenging, selective. It doesn't have. Instead of focusing on all the things your child doesn't eat, let's focus on all the things that they do eat. Even with them, make a list of what do you like? Open up a book with all the fruits and vegetables. I think that the more that you involve kids in the shopping process, in the cooking process, my kids surprise me all the time. And I realize that sometimes we as parents get in this rut of, we're only going to give pasta with butter. But if you possibly tried pesto and you made a little pesto with your child, I think they might surprise you. I think that that's always the one of the bigger challenges is finding the time, those 10 minutes, building those 10 minutes into the shopping to bring your child, or 20 minutes to make something together. When you turn food into a fun game, I think it helps a lot. All right, let's go to the market and let's pick one fruit or vegetable, and what are we going to make with it? You can pick anything you want. The more that kids have the opportunity to see a variety of foods and taste a variety of foods in a positive way, the more apt they are to trying them.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Another question that is popping up quite regularly is the vegetable idea. Are there top 5 vegetables that you recommend putting in your child's lunch? And if your child refuses to eat a certain vegetable, say green beans, should you keep presenting it over and over, or should you just take it out and present other options?
I think that, every child is different. There's no steadfast rule to anything, to any one. I mean, both of my kids love okra, and I don't think, I said it to someone the other day who's like, really? Like, why? And that person may not like okra. But, it's all just what, what's been available and what has been introduced. I think that edamame is a great school lunch choice because you keep it in the freezer and you just pop a little warm water on it for it to defrost and right in the lunchbox. It's great just because kids can, pick it, and it's got lots of protein and it's a bright green color. Cherry tomatoes, same thing. They come in a variety, and buying them organic is always, if you can spend, the extra 10, 20 cents. Places like Trader Joe's have just beautiful heirloom cherry tomatoes that are incredibly sweet. Cucumbers, cutting them into wheels, into sticks. Today I sliced them on a mandolin, really thin, long, just because whenever you can just, change the shape of things, I think that's always fun. Other things, you can, if your child doesn't like green beans, try raw with a dip. Try steaming them. Try, breading them. There's a recipe in the Weelicious cookbook where they're rolled in breadcrumbs and baked, and they're unbelievably good. So sometimes just, if your child doesn't like kale, for instance, try making kale chips or putting it into a smoothie. We make green lemonade probably for dinner 2 to 3 nights a week, and just lemon juice, agave or honey, and kale, and puree it up, and you can strain it if you want to. But always turning vegetables into different, shapes, textures. The way that you cook them can really change the way your child perceives them.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Can you talk a little bit about hot and cold lunches? We're getting a lot of questions from people wondering, do they put an ice pack in the lunch? How do they keep things kind of cool in the lunchbox? If you send in pasta, most schools won't warm it up, so I guess the child just eats it cold. Do you recommend that type of thing?
So it's a great question, and we get it all the time. It always depends on your child. Both of my kids will eat totally room temperature, anything room temperature. They don't really like super cold food or super hot food. But there's plenty of parents whose children absolutely only want a hot lunch, and there are incredible thermoses today where you can put macaroni and cheese and pasta, soup. A great trick with a lot of these thermoses is to submerge them in hot water for 5 minutes, the inside container, and then put it back in, fill it with the food, and then seal it, and that way it'll keep it hotter even longer. So when it comes to an ice pack, like today was a very cool day, so I didn't put one with my son's lunch or my daughter's lunch, but especially when it's warm outside, or if you know where your child's lunch is going to be held, then you absolutely should put an ice pack. So it just, it depends, the conditions. And some schools will warm up, or, children can warm their food up in microwaves. So the one thing I'll say about that is make sure you are not sending your child with a plastic container if they're going to microwave, because you don't want that plastic to, leach into the food.
Okay, that's a good point. We also are getting a lot of questions from women who are working full-time and they get home at night and they're tired and they don't want to spend more time to then make a fresh dinner. Is it okay to prepare a week's worth of food on Sunday and then serve it throughout the week? And if you think that's a good idea, what are some good recipes for doing this?
These ladies speak my language. I mean, this is my life every single Sunday, and I love it. I mean, Sunday is the only day of the week that I feel like life stops a little bit, and I feel like I can really breathe, and we cook as a family every single Sunday. Sometimes I'll take one kid in the kitchen and then another one, or just by myself. It always, every Sunday depends, but I make an enormous thing of pasta, brown rice. I'll either grill or roast a chicken, or there's a recipe on weelicious.com for chicken in a crock pot, which is just put a whole chicken in a crock pot, stuff it with a lemon, turn it on, and that's it. You don't eat the skin, but the meat itself is just like juicy. And then I just, then you can add it to quesadillas, or you can put, chicken stock and make some soup, or, just what we usually do is just eat the chicken, right off the bone. So roasting vegetables. Get the seasonal vegetables. Right now, butternut squash and onions and peppers. You can do broccoli, cauliflower, and I roast up an enormous sheet tray. And like I got my it's so funny. My son like hadn't eaten butternut squash in such a long time. He was like, "No, I don't want it. No, I don't want it. No, I don't want it." And this week I made butternut squash, and I let him pour a little bit of maple syrup on it when he ate it, and he had thirds. And I all of a sudden was like, it's amazing to me. Like, it's that no, 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 I don't want it. And then you're like, all right, do you want to pour some maple syrup on it? Or do you want to sprinkle some sesame seeds on it? Or, just that bit of involvement. And he had thirds. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's just, kids cease to amaze me. But back to the Sundays, there are tons of recipes in the Weelicious cookbook just for exactly what you're saying, where you can make and freeze. I always encourage parents to freeze as much as possible. Like, there's a recipe for shrimp tacos. I keep a bag of frozen shrimp in my freezer at all times. I get them at Trader Joe's. They're wild shrimp, and so that all I have to do is defrost them in the morning, so that at night I just squeeze a little bit of lime juice, some cumin, saute them up, and put them in a tortilla with, you can already have prepared guac or lettuce, tomato, sour cream, whatever. But my kids especially love anything in a burrito or a taco. So, brown rice, black beans, you don't have to, I don't feel like every meal has to be like completely fresh and, perfection. Eggs are one of your best friends. Like, there's a vegetable frittata in the Weelicious cookbook, letting your kids pick what do they want: bacon, eggs, vegetables, and putting it into a frittata. You can add some pasta and bake it in the skillet, and it doesn't take that long, and it's really, really fun.
Those are some great ideas. In fact, a lot of people are asking, in terms of freezing the food, do you normally put it in a specific type of container? Are you using freezer bags? What do you recommend?
I try to use glass as much as possible, just because I feel like there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to freezing. I never freeze I will never pour hot food into anything plastic. You want to always make sure your food cools before. So like, I'll make veggie nuggets. That's one of my favorite recipes in the Weelicious cookbook, and the unfried chicken tenders. And I will make them before baking, put them on a sheet tray, freeze them for 1 hour, and then I'll put them in labeled zipper bags so that they're already frozen, and the zipper bags are basically just, holding them. But you could also freeze in glass. The trick to glass, especially if you're doing something like soups or stews, is to not fill it all the way, because the food expands, and that's where people think, oh, I can't freeze in glass because it'll crack. But you just want to make sure not to fill it all the way up.
Okay. Another question, and this relates a little bit to the story you were just mentioning about the butternut squash, how your son wouldn't eat it, and then finally he put the maple syrup over it. Some moms are asking, how do you get kids to try even a small bite of a new food? A lot of moms feel like they're forcing their kids to try it. I know with my own son, Jack, who's 3, he'll just look at it and will not try it. It just doesn't look right to him. So what are some suggestions for getting kids to at least sample it?
It's funny. I mean, it is an ongoing battle, and I always feel like it's so funny because, like, one day they'll try something, and then all of a sudden, like, their favorite food becomes like, I won't eat that.
Exactly.
Do you like that? I've tried, like, you loved it when you were a baby, or
exactly.
So what always works for me is getting them involved, but I'm talking small things, because I'm a working mom too. So it's sometimes if I make a meal and I didn't get to involve the kids, really, it's my favorite trick always is the sesame seed shaker, sometimes pinching fingers. So I'll either let me go back. put sesame seeds in a shaker, just toasted sesame seeds, and let them shake away on their vegetables. Bragg's is another great way. It's an amino acid, tastes just like soy sauce, and it comes in a spray bottle and it comes in like a squeeze bottle, and you can get it in almost any grocery. And my kids will eat basically anything if it has sesame seeds or it's sprayed with Bragg's on it. Or but let them do it. That's another one of the tricks. Like giving them something to dip in wherever they feel like they can like amp up the flavor. And I said pinching fingers because I let my kids. I have a box of kosher salt or just like a little dish, and so they take their little pinching fingers so that they just get like a few little crystals, and I'll let them put it in in the dish itself right when I finish something, or right on the top of their food. And that for some reason they just all of a sudden, by you including them instead of making dinner and I can't play with you and I can't do this with you and then here, eat this, they're already mad at you. So food is the one thing that kids can do to sort of hold you hostage a little bit, because we really do tell them where to go to school, what to wear every day, sometimes who their friends can be. So food is the one thing that they can say, no, I'm in control, not you.
That's a very good point. Another mom mentioned that she loved the idea of the melon balls that you showed in one of your slides, and she wants to know what other fun kitchen utensils do you recommend buying to turn the meals into a fun, enticing experience?
One would be a mandolin. I love my mandolin. OXO makes the one that I use. I think it's less than $20, and it comes in three. I make homemade potato chips all the time, sweet potato fries. So the mandolin's great because again this morning I used it to slice cucumbers lengthwise. And you can just like roll those cucumbers up into little flowers, and you could even put a cherry tomato in the middle if you wanted to be super inventive. Melon baller comes in, usually when you buy them, they're a few dollars, and they come in two sizes, so watermelon, melon balls. You could even do apples, like little apple balls if you really wanted. Cookie cutters, the greatest investment ever. Go to Michael's, go to Target, wherever. And cookie cutters become, like there's a recipe for egg in the hole. The only reason I'm convinced that my kids like egg in the hole is that I let them pick out the shape to make it.
That's a good point.
It's just egg and bread. Nothing cheaper, nothing easier for a mom. But like if I let my daughter cut it into a C or a heart, she's like game on, whatever. So, cutting vegetables and fruits, breads, anything with cookie cutter shapes.
That's a really good point, because some of the questions coming in, the moms are saying that their kids won't eat bread, so it's becoming challenging to present different food options. But maybe a good idea is to try taking a sandwich and using the cookie cutter and putting it in different shapes and sizes, and that might entice the kids to eat it.
And letting them do it. Even if your child is 2 years old or 18 months. I mean, I started with my kids when they really didn't have the ability to really even do things, but I would just help them. And now it becomes it's together. You're doing it, mommy or daddy and child. So they're feeling really good about themselves, and they're making their own lunch. Like so much of kids is just they want to feel success. So when they are helping to either create their meal, pick their meal, be in the garden and grow something that they nurtured, that's a success for a child. And so of course they want to eat it, because the other thing is like cooking is like art. If we look at the kitchen sort of like a great big art project, we spend all this money for our kids to go to art classes, and we want art in the schools, but the kitchen is the greatest art studio ever, and it's instant gratification because kids get to eat their art.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Another mom is asking, what do I send when I don't have time to make lunch? What's kind of a quick and easy thing if the morning of the mom's running out to work and has to get the lunch ready and the child to meet the bus? What's a quick and easy but also healthy and kind of flavorful lunch?
Well, it all depends on what's in your refrigerator. I mean, obviously sandwiches are easy, but like if forget a sandwich, or grabbing the most nutritious things out of a refrigerator. If it was just like you're gonna grab, grabbing a banana, grabbing a cheese stick, grabbing some crackers, grabbing some baby carrots. It doesn't always have to be this idea of um, you know one, like a sandwich. You can, getting the components is just as exciting and interesting for kids. But I really encourage people to invest in reusable lunch boxes like Planet Box or Laptop Lunchbox, or there's several out on the market, because I think one of the biggest challenges for kids is the idea of like the brown paper bag, because often, being that kids are so distracted and busy, they'll just stick their hand in and pull the first thing out. And if it's the cookie or the sweet treat, that's what they're going to be eating. Or they might pick the thing they really don't want and be like, "Ugh, I don't want this lunch," and they never even looked at the other 2 or 3 items you sent. So having a container where they open it and they see all of their choices immediately. I learned this when my son was in preschool, because 2 of the kids had them, and the teachers were like, "These are the greatest things ever," because especially for teachers trying to keep track, and kids trying to keep track of, tons of containers with lids, plastic baggies, the lunchbox, the whatever the water or the beverages. It's a lot for a kid. So when you have these containers that you just open and you see all of your choices right off the bat, kids will hopefully and possibly make better choices than they would with their lunch packed a different way.
I think that's a really good point, because a lot of people were typing in that they love the containers that you showed in the PowerPoint presentation, and they were asking where to get those. So I think a lot of moms want to present the food in that fashion. So I think that's a really good point.
Well, you can go ahead on our Facebook page. Anyone can go to facebook.com/Welicious, and there's links all over for the Planet Box, and I can put one up also today. It's an investment. There's no doubt about it. But I think that when you look at how much you spend on the Ziplocs and the brown paper bags and the Tupperware containers throughout the year, it equals, about the same thing as a laptop or a Planet Box. And the best thing is, it's really empowering. Like, I give them to kids for birthdays or, for holidays. And the smile on a child's face with like their lunchbox, it's really, really sweet.
Plus, it's good for the environment to have that versus the plastic bags and the waste of that. So absolutely.
And for a mom, I mean, it's such a pleasure for me, because I can open it immediately. I see what was eaten, not eaten, and then you just either hand wash it in one piece, or you put it in it's dishwasher safe. So, that's like a huge bonus.
That's a good point. I have a question about what to give your kids to drink in their lunch. What do you recommend generally?
Water.
That's actually what we do. We only do milk and water in our house, and we do milk for breakfast and then water at lunch. But is that what you also suggest?
I don't ever want, I think people need to decide what they like and what they want to do. I've always done water, so it's really all my kids know. When we go to birthday parties or, special occasions and they want a juice, great. At the end of the day, our kids need water. That is what we all need, human beings need, to keep our bodies moving. We don't get enough of it. And really, juices are just empty calories. So, I mean, I just helped in my daughter's school. They were giving the kids juices on their pizza day. And I was like, let's just give them water and apples. And everyone was on board. So I think it's up to parents to make these choices. Like I always say, like, unless kids all of a sudden, your 5-year-old got a set of your keys and headed off to the grocery store, the food that we provide, we are giving them. So, if we left it up to our kids, I'm sure that they would sit around eating ho-hos and ding-dongs all day long. I'm sure I would.
In fact, that leads us to the next question, which is, what is your go-to treat to make for your kids' classroom? So if it's your child's birthday, or it's your time to bring in a snack for the kids, what do you recommend?
Well, it's always different. I mean, I actually, my son, he wanted raspberry cream cheese heart tarts. They're his most favorite thing. They're in the Weelicious cookbook, and they're like Pop-Tarts in the shape of hearts, but they're filled with fresh raspberries and cream cheese. And I take frozen raspberries and press them through a sieve, so you get that red juice, and mix it with a little confectioner sugar so that they're bright pink red for the icing on top. So instead of using food coloring, and they really, I buy pre-made dough. I'm not going to pretend that I make, tons and tons of homemade dough, but they love those. I mean, Rice Krispie treats that have a nut butter, or you can make them with sunflower butter. They're so easy. They're also in the Weelicious cookbook. Spinach muffins I've made before, and the kids love them. Popsicles, like I make tons of homemade popsicles, and most most schools have freezers, so that's a really inexpensive and healthy, nutritious treat to make. And you can just make them in little Dixie cups and put wooden popsicle sticks, so that you don't have to go back looking for your ice pop containers.
No, that's a good point. Great. Well, this has been really good. We're going to take one last question, which is, what are the top 10 ingredients that moms and dads should always keep stocked in their kitchen for lunch?
For lunch, I would say nut butters or sunflower seed butters. Top 2 or 3 fruits, and I would say top 2 or 3 vegetables, and make sure they're things that are like baby carrots will last for a week, if not longer. Like again, I said frozen edamame. Whole fruits, same thing. They can last, and keep them out for 2 or 3 days, and then put them in the refrigerator for a few days. Cheese of all kinds, orange cheese, yellow cheese, melting cheeses are great. Nuts, dried fruits, an array of crackers that are hopefully not too loaded with junk and salt and things like that. The most nutritious crackers or breads that you can buy. Whole grains, pastas. Let's see. I'm doing a visual of my kitchen.
I think that might be 10. Those are all really good.
I can really keep going. Seaweed snack. That's another one. If your child hasn't tried seaweed snack, you can get it at Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and oh my gosh, my kids will eat seaweed snack till they're blue in the face.
Well, that's a great suggestion. Well, Catherine, I think that pretty much wraps up our presentation. I know as a mom of 2 young children, I found your webinar extremely insightful, so thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any last words that you want to impart before we wrap it up?
I would just say to parents, take it easy on yourself, take a deep breath, and involve your kids as much as possible, but try to enjoy the process of cooking and feeding your family.
That sounds great. Well, Catherine, thanks again, and thanks Stonyfield for sponsoring this webinar. Don't forget, everyone who's listening, that National Take Your Parents to Lunch Day is next Wednesday, October 17th. Please find out more about the program by visiting our website, myhealthyschool.com/lunchday. And again, thanks everyone for joining us, and have a good day.